Dune Part Two. Woo-wee. Now that Dune Part Two is now coming to theaters. This is going to probably be the main movie you've probably already heard a lot of talk about. If you've already been on my channel, I've already released my early reaction to what I saw. And now's the time where I can kind of expand on that just a little bit more for you guys. When it comes to Dune, let's go ahead and start off with like just a really quick intro. So you start off here, Dune Part Two. It's gonna explore the mythic journey of Paul Atreides, as you see here, as he unites with Chani, that was played by Zendaya, and the Freeman, while on a path of revenge against the conspirators who destroyed his family. Facing a choice between the love of his life and the fate of the known universe, he endeavors to prevent a terrible future that only he can see. Okay, so that's basically what Dune 2 is about. Okay, so let's first of all start off with the good. Um, I think that when you have someone like Denis Villeneuve, the director, the one thing that is going to stand out, and it's probably his bread and butter at this point, it's going to be the visuals. The visuals in this movie are insane. The cinematography is absolutely perfect. You have like the desert scenes. Look at just this shot. Just this shot. This is the type of imagery that he's talking about, that in his interviews, that he really gravitates to in his films. I personally really enjoyed this right from the very first beginning shot. The second we get into the desert, you're getting into the action scenes. Just pay attention to the camera angles. When the bodies hit the floor, and you'll know what that is. Pay attention to like how the camera works. Pay attention to the different angles. Pay attention to all the different scenery and everything that happens, because he really does give you this huge scale, this scale that makes you feel small at times, and I'm telling you, this is so solid when it comes to these type of scenes. And it was definitely something that I absolutely enjoyed. You have a couple scenes also when it comes to the visuals. Um, you have a scene here that's kind of like you're in like this gladiator, arena type of thing. And just notice how they change the color. Now it's in black and white. Why? Because you're on a different planet. The vibe changes, the feel changes, the visuals change. That's how vivid and that's how interactive, Denis Villeneuve has made this whole movie, where even when you go to a different planet, you feel it. Like it really does feel like you're going and you're being somewhere else. So like the visuals are fantastic. And not only that, I would argue that the director masterfully crafted a very unique and captivating sense of not just the imagery, but also the sound. Sometimes you forget that you're watching an actual movie. I mean, when I'm sitting there, I'm watching this movie and I'm listening to the audience, but that wasn't the audience. It was the crowd in the movie. That's how dope the surround sound was. I was like, yo, am I here? Like, what is happening? It really felt like an immersive experience. Now, the closest that I can give you as an example would be like Avatar. If you saw Avatar for the very first time in a very big screen, in the theaters. No, I'm not saying the visuals are exactly the same. I'm talking about how it feels, the immersive experience being in the theater, where you sitting there and you're watching Avatar and you're like, yo, I feel like I'm also riding this crazy creature, or man, I feel like I'm actually in the water right now. In other words, you forget that you're watching a movie. And that's what the visuals in this whole in Dune 2 really accomplished, in my opinion. Like you just could not help but to really get engulfed in all of these different things. And even and it's also the subtle stuff, right? So like there's a scene where you see Paul Atreides walking towards a crowd of people and the camera goes into slow motion. Now, here's the thing. I've talked about this with other directors that I won't name. And the slow motion, it's gradual, right? It's not something like really, really slow, and then you finally get there 10 minutes later. I mean, he's doing it in a gradual way where now, as the audience, you could sit here and see the scale. You could see all the people that he's about to talk to, and you could sit here and be like, yo, I can bask in this moment the right way. It's those subtle little camera tricks that really capture you in this film. So that right there absolutely was a highlight, in this movie. And I would argue that this movie did the visuals and cinematography so well that you might have classes taught on this. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, he's a master and all that. Yeah, he got it. Okay. My man did it. He got it with this movie. So, again, feel free. That is definitely going to be something you'll want to look at. And when I tell you the desert battles, the fights in the desert were amazing. That was probably one of my other favorite moments in the film, was when people are fighting in the desert. You just get to see all these other cool little techniques. Again, you can already see the scale here. This is a huge battle. This is a huge battle that they're doing. And what I liked was the fact that the sand people always had to go against different army tactics, military tactics. And I just thought it was really refreshing that, like, yo, the action never felt stale. There was always something here that was interesting, that was different. And it was exciting to see. So that to me was really, really cool. That they really knocked out the park there. But I think that now I have to talk about the performances. Of course, you have Zendaya, she's here. She does a really good job. Her chemistry with Timothée Chalamet, he was, that was really on point. You really do feel, what they're going through, and I would argue this: there's a moment in this, and shout out to Zendaya for this. You're good at acting when you don't have to speak and your actions speak volumes. And I'm going to tell you this. I'm not going to tell you what happens because this is a spoiler-free review. But when you see her look at this point in the movie, I know in my audience, people was like, oh. Like it just, everyone just got it. And I felt it. And I was just like, yo, this right here, that's acting. That's good acting, right? So that was definitely phenomenal. My man Dave Batista came through. Again, he was doing his thing. Shout out to Dave Batista, man, because he was really putting on a good performance. Javier Bardem, fantastic as well. By the way, my man was actually funnier than you probably would have thought. Like, I had no idea his I'm not gonna tell you how he was funny, but he got a couple chuckles. I'll just say that. It's not silly, it's not goofy, but he got a couple chuckles in this film that you might not have seen coming. Of course, the Skarsgård, oh my gosh, this family is ridiculous. Shout out, look at the makeup team, the big bully, the big Baron or whatever. He was fantastic. But listen, you got a huge cast of great actors, and out of all of them, I have to say Austin Butler probably tried to steal the entire show. The second this man gets on camera, the second this man is introduced, you almost forget about everybody else. You are just like, who is he? What is going on? What is his deal? I need to know more. How, why, what is going on with, Voldemort Jr. here? But he absolutely was a scene stealer. His transformation in terms of like, see, I mean, he's that little heartthrob or whatever people like, but he turns into like this menacing, antagonistic character, and you can't help but to watch. You just cannot help. So he absolutely carries the film. for the most part, especially towards the end of the film. And then of course, um uh something else that I think is kind of important to talk about is this movie that I appreciated was the dialogue was a lot better. And what I mean by that is there are moments in the first movie that I just didn't get. It was too thick, it was too vague, stuff didn't make sense to me. And this movie, what it does better than the other one is it actually does a little bit of hand holding. And honestly, when you're talking about Dune, something that's so rich, you need that. You need to figure out things, right? So, like, this movie does a much better job at being more accessible to the average viewer. So, again, if you were kind of confused about, like, who was that? What's that family? What planet is this? Listen, they explain things a lot clearer in this film, and I thought that that was very, very important and very vital, just to basically keep up with the film, because again, there's a lot going on, right? So with that said, I like the visuals, sound quality, action, performances were on point, um and just the overall dialogue was pretty good. But now I got to talk about the bad. So, first and foremost, in case you didn't know, Dune is like, and I think 2 hours and 48 minutes, something like that. It feels long. It does feel long. You gonna feel every piece of this movie because it's just the pacing. The pacing at certain points, if it's not a lot of crazy action or some amazing, stupidly vivid visual, it's gonna drag a little bit. There are moments where I was kind of like, just not long, not long. But there were times I was kind of looking at my watch, like, come on, like, what? How long we been here? So it does feel long. There are moments. It doesn't hurt the movie in a bad way, but you feel the length. You feel the length, right? In addition to that, I think my other issue was that even though I did like some of the dialogue and how they explained certain things, like, hey, this is that character's motivation, hey, this is what's going on. Honestly, some of the dialogue, it didn't always it wasn't always executed the best when it came to the overall story. And let me give you one big example. So in the third act, towards the end of the movie, there's a certain uh plot twist. There's a certain reveal that ends up happening, and it's supposed to be a shocking reveal. Like when it happens, it's supposed to be a big thing. But the impact, I thought, kind of fell flat due to the fact that this movie didn't take the time to build it up, right? Like it's almost like I really don't want to ruin it for you guys, but the problem was just the fact that if you're gonna have a big reveal, you have to build it up enough for us to care about it. And I don't think that they did a good job with that. So, maybe some hardcore Dune fans, maybe they caught that surprise. But I remember when it happened, and I was just kind of like, that's it. So what? Oh, that's the case? All right. Whatever. So again, it felt like a wasted opportunity for a potentially really good plot twist or reveal to kind of fall flat like that. Now, my bigger issue, and again, it's more minor, but it is still an issue, was in the conflicts. So you have a lot of conflicts in this movie, a lot of fight scenes, big battles, and stuff like that. One of the issues that I have was the fact that even when you see certain fights, when things get built up, when things are like at an all-time high, and you're sitting here like, yes, I've been waiting for this person and that person to go at it. Yes, I've been waiting for these. Ooh, yeah, let's go. The fights would start off dope, but man, they would end poorly. They would end in such an anticlimactic fashion. Matter of fact, there was one scene where big fight going very well, but some of the action takes place off screen. So when it takes place off screen, you're sitting here like, well, what happened? Wait, that person won? Wait, or if it didn't happen off screen, it happened too fast. I was like, wait a minute, we just got here. That's it? Y'all just gonna fight for 30 seconds? Like, I've been waiting 2.5 like movies for the what? That's it. So for me, there was those kind of big fights did not work. I felt like they were kind of rushed and or just not done very well. But that's it. That's it that I got for the bad. Now I got to give y'all my overall rating and the reason behind Dune Part Two. So I would say this. Dune Part Two is absolutely a must watch. And I don't say this often, but it is an epic sci-fi. It is visually stunning. It's an adventure that could already be considered, dare I say, the best movie of the year. It has all the potential to still be the best movie of the year. It's a sci-fi fan's dream come true, and that's no question about it because you have to experience this on the biggest screen possible. Now, I saw this in IMAX, and I'm really convinced that if you don't see this on the biggest screen, you could be selling yourself short. And that's all. Like, this is not the movie to watch on your 50-inch TV screen at home. No disrespect to nobody with 50-inch TV screens. Okay, I got one, but I'm just saying this ain't that kind of movie. This is kind of like how the same way the best way to watch Avatar was in theaters. This is that kind of movie. This is that movie that you do want to put that time and investment into. So yeah, that is something that absolutely should be put into consideration when you are deciding if you're going to go see it. And I would say, look, if you compared the previous Doom Part 1 to this film, the sequel, I thought raised the bar in a lot of areas and feels more entertaining for audiences. Doom Part 2, I think immediately enters the conversations for awards, especially nominations in cinematography, best picture, and best director. I think all of those are already in the running with this movie. So when it comes to the rating for Dune Part 2, I've got to give it a 9 out of 10. This movie was fantastic. Um, this was definitely something that I did not see coming. And I'll be fully honest, I was not excited for this movie. I heard a lot of hype and talk about it from my colleagues. It's a masterpiece. It's awesome. It's great. And usually when I hear that, I'm like, Cap, all right, whatever. Like I hear it from the film bros, a lot. But this time I was like, oh, I get it. All right, I see it. Now, for my not so avid film fans, right? For my people that like, you watch movies, you like movies, but maybe you just not all that deep into Dune. Let me talk to you real quick because I was kind of like this with Dune. I was not a fan of Dune. I never read the books. I never watched the TV series. I only watched the original 1984 movie, and then I watched Part One. And to be honest, even though Part One was technically made very nicely, I did not think that it was the best movie. It was like, whatever. Like, I get it, but not really, right? So anyway, this is what I would tell if you're like a newcomer to Dune. If you're like, man, I've been on the fence. I don't know if I need to see this or not. This is what I would tell you. Like, jumping into Dune Part 2 is kind of like jumping into the deep end of a pool and you don't know how to swim, right? So the sequel does try to explain some of the more ambiguous things of Part 1. In other words, the sequel is kind of like getting a life raft, or it's like the little swim jacket or whatever, the life jacket. It's kind of like that. Yeah, you might not know how to swim, but that life jacket it's going to hold you up. Okay, you're going to be floating, all right, and you can enjoy the water. So Part 2 primarily builds upon the foundation that the first film establishes. So again, if you watch the first movie, and you don't remember all them names, you don't remember all them planets, you don't know why people were doing certain things, it's okay. Because part two is going to assume that you just have a little bit of knowledge and they're gonna handhold you the rest of the way. They're gonna give you, so don't feel like you gotta recall all the details. Don't think that you gotta put everything together. Just watch the first movie and you'll be all right with the second. So I think that that would help give you the necessary context to fully appreciate the epic journey in part two. And once you experience both films, and I say both of them in theaters, you know, if you can't, well, not part one, but once you experience both films and you watch this in theaters, I think that you're gonna have a really good time, you know. So that's my thoughts on Dune Part Two. Have you seen Dune Part Two yet? Or do you plan on watching Dune Part Two? If and when you do, come on back to this video and let me know, what did you think about it? What was your rating for Dune Part Two? Again, whatever you think, let me know in the comments down below. If you're new here and you like what you see, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell so you don't miss out the next time I drop a video. I've got more videos and reviews to do for you all, and until next time, I'll see you all later.